I'm Patrick Davidson. On this episode of ReCAPS, we're sharing another personal history that CAPS recorded for the Museum of Ventura County's presentation, Ventura County, the place we call home. Today's storyteller is Julie Tumamait Stenslie.
Home can mean many things for many people. And even for the same individual, it could be, it varies widely, and it could be many things at the same time as well. So I guess, I myself, when I look back on what home means to me, I'm an immigrant. I'm mixed. I have families that come from different backgrounds. And, I live far away from my blood relatives. And I'm in touch with them. But then when I look at, what does home mean to Carlos? I usually feel that because I don't have my blood relatives close to me, I seek for other meaningful relationships with people in the community. Mm. And I noticed that I tend to then use my work as a way to connect with others. And that gives meaning to my life in a way. So I feel that home is something that you carry within you in my particular case. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I was wondering, Julie, because you were talking outside a little bit about your family, why don't you tell me just a little bit about yourself?
Okay.
Who are you?
Well, hello, Carlos. I'm Julie Tumamait Stenslie, and to call this place home for me is so rich and so deep. I'm the youngest of 7. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. All my relatives on my father's side are all past, the elders that I knew. I'm now, meeting their grandchildren that are adults now, coming back to homeland. And growing up, I grew up in the what we called the river bottom in Ojai, in the Miners Oaks area of the Ojai Valley. And in those times, we sustained ourselves on native foods. My brothers hunted, my father fished, and my mother, being from Mexico, they met at Cañada Larga Ranch, where my aunt and her husband he was the foreman there, Mike Polito. And it's the work that I have done takes me back to those places of growing up in the river bottom, where it was not really, anybody who lived in the river bottom was called river rats. It was very cheap rent. Everybody was like supposedly poor. I didn't feel poor. We had so much fun out there running around in the trails, and when the rains came, the swimming holes were full. We all played. My mom didn't like us going out and visiting people. People, when they came to us, and they loved coming to the river bottom. Our cousins from Ventura here would come out. And decades later, as I started investing in my native Chumash culture, I realized that that's the same river and watershed that my great-great-grandmother, Alula Mewe, swam and played in and grew up in. And to have that relationship that close and that, just special to me, it really inspires me to learn more about what is that rivershed. My mother would make the nopales, and she cooked in her indigenous ways. So we always had that around us. But growing up, our name, Tumamait, is the only surviving native name that became a surname. My great-grandfather told the priest, Marquez, I don't want that name. I'm going to keep my native name. So he did. Not many other people were in those times and days. He was baptized in 1811 and became as an adult, a general contractor. He was what we would refer to in those post-mission times, capitan in the village area there. But going through that whole mission process, he was a translator, And the name translates as an orphan, one who was raised by his grandparents and learned to carry things on his back. So we can take our family, and the only real good thing I can say about that period is they documented us through baptismal records. So we have our village names our families come from, even from the islands, because we are island Chumash as well, on both sides of my father's parents. My grandmother from Santa Rosa Island, my grandfather from Santa Cruz Island. They went south to Malibu. The Santa Rosa people went north up to Carpinteria and then up into the Cuyama Valley, but they both circumvented into villages all along that Highway 33 corridor. So when I know this stuff and I'm visiting these places, and people, especially in the Ojai Valley, where people say, "Oh, this feels like home to me," I said, "Well, yeah, it does. There's a spirit in that region, and that people often feel that way. And for me, it is kind of hard to explain. I tell people, go home, because you can't. I mean, I feel we all have a genetic disposition in us that lures us, because I'm not just Chumash. I'm half. The rest of my ancestry literally circumvents the globe and that mitochondrial DNA, and I feel called to places in other areas, sounds, music. When I can learn about my ancestors in our homeland, and going to the islands, and going in my backcountry, knowing the seasons, anticipating the elderberries, the blossoms that I pick for my colds and for my flu, and just keep my immune system up, or the wild cherries, which will be ready in probably about 2 more months. I can eat some wild cherries. But then to know that, for instance, our relatives in that connection that goes so many thousands of years back, and how there was a small gap in between. It didn't go away forever or completely, but it did have a renaissance, and where there were few people who gave enough information to get us started to bring back some of these cultures. So, when they ate abalone and little special treats like pine nuts, they went a step further and they made these beautiful ornamentations right here. And from here, these came from Northern California. But I mean, it was always that reciprocity of praying, honoring, and the work I do archaeological work. So trying to get people to understand, sometimes I just want to yell at them, wake up, learn about this land, learn the thousands of years that it has sustained people. Everything was here for you, waiting when you came, and we still have a lot of all that stuff, with few things going extinct. But to try and be a person who can educate and by example, and show the beauty of nature here, because we're in a spot right now where we're really putting nature into a very hard position. And I always say, when we do go too far, it's going to be too late. So to be home and to fight for land, we really have invested in this honoring that needs to happen, and where people coming here and wanting to make homes, they of course bring things with them that have been detrimental to our environment here, with invasive plants. And this is where, now that we know that they're not meant to be here, there's a chance and an opportunity for great change. So that place of home, it is so broad and so wide for me that it's sometimes overwhelming. And the work that we need to do, and the protection of, when I get deeper and more intimate into that protection and into that going home, is when I'm doing archaeological work and they find our cemeteries. And I literally cradle some of my relatives in my arms and hold them, if possible. It's not always possible. Everybody wants to rush through these things. But to find another, the word sanctified doesn't mean anything in this culture. And it's been lost to a lot of things that people do in the world here. So, and that has no definition. When something's designated as sanctified, it should remain. But it doesn't happen all the time. So with as much prayer and as much strength that it takes to be able to take our relatives and move them into a safer place, and pray again that they don't get touched again. That's something that a lot of people don't understand, and what it means you'll never forget them. And the beauty, though, I see it as not, some people say, oh, and it's taboo. Well, in some cultures it is. And you don't speak of the relatives after they pass. You don't utter their names. You don't. But here, I see it a different way. I see it, as an honor, as a very huge responsibility to take care of those family members and those relatives, and to see them in their special place that they were put originally. It's quite beautiful. I really find it just like, who are you? Look at you, because it's all different, just in the different positions and things. But I mean, so to have that type of work and what I've been doing for nearly 40 years now, it's really given me that sense of place where I need to tell people, pretty soon your relatives are now here. You're in cemeteries that are designated, and you go and you can visit them. We don't know where ours are, so we have to argue and fight and protect. But again, in parts of America there are, but to know that our families have been here. When I first heard that there was a designated time frame of 10,000 years of us being the oldest people in North America, then that testing and scientific method brought it up to 12,000 years. It's like, wow, okay. And then it went into 13,500 years. So I'm like saying, wow, okay, that is really exciting. And to know that that individual that was tested was from Santa Rosa Island, and that we're connected to that island, I said, wow, we cannot determine whether that individual was male or female. They kept going back and forth. But to know that we have been here in this region and this part of North America for that long, really, people find it hard to believe. I said, I think we're older. That's just the science of one individual. I think we've been here way longer than that, and the culture is so deep and so challenging to figure out. But from what we know, and what elders held for us, that's been written scientifically with anthropologists, it really gives me a sense of just pride, and knowing that these people didn't use the land. They worked with the land. And that's what, I try to do, and what I'm doing, and bringing kids especially to teach them. They're going to be the stewards. So I want them to feel, with hands-on, to be able to experience making cordage, for instance, out of milkweed, or there's other people who come in and teach them how to flint knap and work with stone and wood and plant seeds and all that they get that sense, eating native food, acorn meal, making cookies or bread, and we eat other foods that are foreign. First time I ever ate an artichoke, I said, what is this? But I mean, the experience of really diving into indigenous culture that is here, that is still right in front of our face and in our places, and to take it further is that not only we are the land here, we are as if we've never left. We just kind of had a detour there for about 200 years. So now we're back in that lane. But to help people realize too that every other living being here is part of that world, and all had a spirit, all have a spirit, all have a soul in that place where we crossed over, come back after a certain time. All of our, no, I wouldn't say maybe all of our stories, but a good portion of our stories all have to do with nature and recognizing the animals at a time when the animals were people, and we were learning certain things from them, such as attitudes and how to behave in the world. And that honoring and that reciprocity that happened season after season. You did your spring, you did your summer, your fall, your winter. And at the winter time, you stayed in. Our only prayer that I've seen for rain is, it's raining, it's raining. You must go in your home. So I just get out of the way, rest, let the land rest, let the animals breathe. I mean, during COVID, the animals are finding their places back. They have a memory much deeper than we do. The earth has a memory millions of years old, and people want to be where they want to be right now all the time. And we need to move. We need to move out of that space and let them be who they are, and bring back and restore what damage we've done to our regions here for them.
Well, hearing you talk, you've covered everything and we needed. But so you've mentioned your concept of home. First, you started talking about memories. You have talked about home as a place that you grew up in. And you have talked also home as the relatives and ancestors. How have your concept of home evolved through the years? Has it evolved at all?
It's evolved when I had children. Everything changes when you have children. Your whole life changes, your attitude, your perspective, your life, line. Am I going to see my children grow up? Or are my children, that's the saddest thing, is your children going to leave before you? So, again, when we own a home in the Miners Oaks area, and I think that's one of the saddest things that I'm seeing right now is that the displacement of people. A lot of my relatives were displaced out of Ventura County because of housing costs. So having that place of home where, not too far from where I grew up, we're still in a rural area. I love the neighborhood. It's getting a little noisy sometimes, but it's okay. But I mean, to have something for my children to, have, they would never be able to afford now what we were able to almost not be able to afford 24 years ago when we purchased. So having that sense, it has evolved into that do I want something bigger? No, I can't afford, even back then, no, I love my little place. I love that it's crowded. I love that it's cozy. It's got some room, some land around it, and it's beautiful to me. I've got a gigantic oak tree in the property, a gigantic redwood, which doesn't belong there, but it's there. So it's just that nurturing. It's just a different sense of home. We leave and go on vacation to very beautiful places in the Southwest, to Arizona and Sedona and where the Navajo, Zuni, Hopi are, and it's gorgeous out there. It's beautiful. It makes me just cry because I see that continuance of culture that they still maintain, and praying for the last rains and going into the Zuni Pueblo and seeing them. It makes me want to bring our sense of place into that, but there's not enough of us willing to invest with each other. Everybody wants to do things on their own, but to bring that sense of who we are and our ceremonies and bringing the non-native communities in so they can see and have that vibration of seeing something so truly original and sacred and honoring these lands and these times of year. So it's evolved into that, where in my younger days, I didn't think that any of that would be possible. But as I started moving into the work I do, I said, we need something bigger here. We need space. So we have land. Another little piece of home we have is 6 acres in the Saticoy. And hopefully that'll be a place that can be developed into a public area where there'll be ceremonial and demonstrations and a cultural center there. But I would love one in Ojai. I would love one here in Ventura. I'd love one out in Malibu. There is one in Malibu, but it's been stolen by some pretendian who's just kind of, wiped out any sense of us doing anything there. So it's, again, trying to find I wouldn't use my home. My home is very sacred and quiet. My husband and I work with a lot of people all the time. So when we come home, we really try to just be home. And sometimes we don't keep the phones off. But it would be great to have property that's big enough that would engage and bring people. Working with land conservancies, that's something that's in my future. I can't speak for anybody else, but just partnering up with them. I would love to have the sense of home and place that is outdoors in the Ojai Valley or anywhere really, that people come and they can watch it and learn and watch the seasons as they come and go and learn the quietness and the meditativeness and of being in a quiet place, watching and observing not only the plants but animals that live there. Hopefully somewhere by water where we can, experiment with that and not necessarily turn it into a well, maybe a village. I don't know. That's something I don't know if I want to go that far. I just would like just that raw kind of nature and creating a space for people. A lot of people need to be outdoors and they don't know how to find it. We do go around monthly, a group of people, and what we call Ojai Church of the Wild, and where people gather on the first Sunday of each month and we'll find a spot. Might be Harmon Canyon. It might be Machilaha Canyon. Can't go there now. It might be the mouth of the river at our village, Shishalup, out here. And it's 2 hours, and the word or the logos of God, creator, whatever you want to call him, is out in nature. So we do little things in the beginning, but then we send people wandering and let them find a sit spot. And for a lot of people, they find that it is not church, but in a sense it is church because they're coming to some point in their world that, yeah, this is what I need. I need this. I need the nature. Some people don't realize that when we live in this place and we learn about all the spiritual aspects of home here, we find that the oak trees, for instance, are a spirit helper. And people are afraid of oaks and because they fall. Well, yeah, trees fall. People get run over by cars too. But it is a spiritual tree that helps people emotionally. In our history, it's the child of the moon, and moon is a deity, female deity that is does so much. But one of her main qualities is that controls the emotions of all living beings. So she gives that gift to her children, the oaks. So when you're out there and you find your little oak, sometimes it'll spark off at you. Go, here I am. And you sit there and you just be. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. And for me, growing up and finding that place out in nature, that was my safe place, being out in nature. So, it's something that people, instead of going out and partying and graffitiing things up like during COVID, it was really so disrespectful seeing what people were doing to the outdoors to escape. It's like, well, don't treat it that way. So,
I feel that we could talk for a very long time. There are certain things that you're saying that are resonating as well, and that I would like to know more about. But I don't even know how are we doing with time.
No, I think the question I would ask is, Julie, I'm like him. We can sit here for hours and it would be great. We'd all learn. The two words, home is sometimes overused. And I'd connect home and spirituality, I think is a particular sweet spot for you, something you've blended those things. So when you think of those two things together, what comes to mind?
When I think of home and spirit, being from here and it gives me chills right now because I know what it feels like. I just can't describe it. It is a sense of admiration. It is a sense of just, wow, you did that with this, and it's that pride. It is that ancestral knowledge for what little bit that was passed down, that everything, if we were to see everything through their eyes, that it all had spirit, we wouldn't be so ready to kill it, move it, trash it, scoot it away, and build something that just doesn't make any sense. But so it can bring us back to where we might end up if the world does go crazy on us. We just had an earthquake not too long ago. And right away, we're all thinking, hopefully that brings us back to a place of what do we need? How would we survive? Well, people often say the words, oh, you can't go back to the past. Well, there are some things we need to go back to the past. And that's the way people completely and without hesitation respected the earth and honored it, gifted it, sang to it. When I started doing full moon ceremonies, I met a Shinto priest, and I always get these calls, "You don't know me, but," and we start a relationship. So we started doing full moon ceremonies all throughout the valleys. And one of the things in Ojai that we did, we woke up the deities there, and Ojai is a spirit anyway about catching people doing, not fitting in. And many people will, see it as this revolving door. It's got a 5-year. If you can't make it in 5 years, it spits you out. So it's a karmic relationship. So when we look at that, and the first few times, we don't do them too much anymore. My elder's old, and he doesn't move around too much. But there was a moment in time when I was praying into the north. I went, "Oh my gosh, it's been over 200 years that no one has prayed to you, has recognized you, has gifted you, and even like acknowledged you." Hiroji said, "Well, when I was doing ceremony and I got my voice I was chanting and my voice was raised." And I said, "Yes." "Well, I was scolding the deities." I went, "Really? Should you scold the deities?" Yes, because they have work to do. I went, okay. Yeah. Says, everything was here. The people in the reciprocity, if there was no rain, it was our fault. We didn't give the right prayers. If something wasn't growing or something died and we didn't do the right processes, it falls on us as humans. It's not Earth's fault. It's got its cycles, and it's us paying attention to what's going on in the cycles that happen. So having that and praying, we have our medicine, the datura, that took us to that place of spiritual visions, and it protected us from evil, spells, curses, things like that. But it also broadened up that dimension of the sacred and the benevolent people that existed in our universes here. There's energy that's above us, there's energy that's below us, and we're kind of in this middle between the two, that in our ancient times, we were food. And there were times when you were told, "Don't be doing this stuff at this time of day," or "Don't be trying to get away with things, because if you're walking in this place, sun's watching and you can't get away with anything." In our path of reincarnation, if we were nasty, rotten people, we never made it back. Our journey ended there in the land of the dead, which is not in this earth. It wasn't a heaven and hell thing. It was a upper world, a sky people, lower world with the devils and all those evil people. But Shimilashka was out past Cassiopeia, and that's where your soul went after you died. And if you were good-natured, and could make your way through that land, 12 years later you came back. So, when I see people that are, in the vegan and vegetarian and don't want to eat meat, I say, well, that salad could be Uncle Fred there you're eating. Who knows? I mean, so it's the honoring is what's missing, I think, in today's world. And when you look at things, I'm going to, again say, I love Joseph Campbell. One of the things he says, he's our grandfather of mythology, is if you said about plants and animals, if you called them they or thou, then you change this inside you that makes you now look at them in a different way. And yes, it's the quality of what you eat and how it's processed. And it may be too late for us to, really grow our own food, but we need to.
Home in Chumash.
Well, we don't. That particular word, I don't know, but our house is an up. It's a very simple little word. And these homes, these villages, were permanent villages where you came back year after year for I don't know how many generations, but then seasonal. We had smaller places that we would visit because the piñon pines were growing up in the Cuyama. We'd go visit there.
Oh, not the physical home.
No.
What is the spiritual home in Chumash? How would you describe that?
Oh, okay. Wow, I think it's scary. I think it's powerful, way powerful, because there's things there that were conducted without anybody's knowledge. There were people who gathered and prayed very seriously. There were people who took that mamoi and went into the caves and painted symbols and images there. So those were very powerful places. There were very powerful people who went into dream time and followed, that vision that told him that this is what, you're going to be doing. Shamanism, is a word that's kind of loosely used today, but for very few people are actually shamans when you think about that process of how they got there. To know that our spirit, when I mentioned about the soul leaving off into the land of the dead, the spirit stayed around and watched over people and came to you in those dream times. It could be what we call an Atishwin, spirit helper, dream helper. And it could be an animal or a plant, the tree, the oak tree, several different types of animals, because they all have attributes that you may want. But the relatives that come and visit you in those times are the seers. They're the ones that help you. And there's also the visitation by people you don't know, and dreams that are showing you. Like, I had a dream that kept bringing me to a place in Carpinteria related to my grandmother and my father. And I'm going, what is that? Some gathering that in the morning. I went, oh, I don't like mornings. But I kept having this vision over and over again for a year and a half. So I'm working in a store. These people come in right away. Oh, are you Indian? I go, yeah. And it turned out they were in Carpinteria. And they had just purchased the Carpinteria Bluffs. So this was like 20 some years ago, and probably 23 years ago. And they asked me if I didn't know at the time, I'm just listening to them, can you do like a blessing for us? We were going to have a public thing. I go, oh, okay. Well, if you call it a ceremony, I'd feel better about that term. When is this? Well, we're thinking about spring, maybe around the equinox. Okay, and where again? Well, it's at this by the village there by state. Oh, you mean Mashnapshno? That's where my grandmother's from. Okay, that was 2 flags. And then I said, what time did you want to have this done? Oh, and then we're thinking sunrise. I'll do it. That was it. Just listening and knowing that for whatever reason it took that long for this event that we've been doing now for 23 years. Every spring equinox, we have the sunrise ceremony that anybody's invited to.
What do you hope home becomes in the future?
I would like to see it not change anymore. I think we have enough in this world to sustain us. I think we have to even dial back the needs, the wants versus the needs. And, because people are so disposable these days, they don't know when to stop. And where money is the catalyst for all this to get bigger, greater, better, faster. And the proof that we're seeing now is that our roads are crowded. There's people still homeless, starving. And I think that the engagement in coming back to a place, I don't want everybody to be that simple, but I mean, it's like there are people who, if they had knowledge, the whole medical industry needs to lighten up and, and make, like other countries, free medical care. And if not, then let's teach people about the natural remedies that are here. I mean, during COVID, people were taking our yerba santa, which is excellent for the lungs. And then I learned that English ivy is also a respiratory tea. So people were taking the two together. And that doesn't cost you anything. That just costs you going out and, I don't want people going out into nature. I want them to start procuring and growing native foods and create community gardens for people to access and be able to get their hands dirty and learn about these things. I want them to be able to not have the fear that's happening right now, because I just see the fear growing as we change, and the land acknowledgements that's happening right now. I really respect the people who are wanting, they want us to do the land acknowledgement. It's like, no, that's not how it works. I know our land is stolen. No, I will accept a land acknowledgement from this group or that group or this individual, and recognizing that you are on unceded land of the Chumash people. And at that one time during mission period, my great-grandfather said to Poli, no, they're going to give us that beachfront there. That's land is ours. But it never happened. So, the only other people that have land is up in San Ynez, where they got the federal recognition there. So it never happened out here. I don't know that I want federal recognition. I know who I am. And there is a point when your blood quantum gets so low, they're done with you. But there is money there where, with the tribal group I started, that we could apply. If we got the federal status, I would get money to buy our lands back and keep this open space. We're bringing our world into a place of a lot of non-native plants, and slowly but surely the birds are going, the amphibians are going, and it's this little cycle. The wildlife corridors need to happen more. 1 year, 13 mountain lions dead for different reasons. Deprivation order, vehicular hunting, and poisons. Nobody wants to live with nature, so they kill it. And that's the kind of mindset we need to change, that we're inviting these animals in because of how we live. And we're taking the water away from them, so they're forced into our 2009, a bear came into Ojai, huge drought during that time, and treat him. People kept coming around him, so he 40 feet up in the tree, and the Fish and Wildlife came, kept begging them, don't kill him. Well, they did. They let him fall to his death, a 300-pound black bear. And there was opportunities for them to send him to a facility to wear off the anesthesia, but it was the first day of bear hunting season. They wouldn't put a tainted bear out. Nobody's eating bear. It's all trophy hunting. So I would like to see that type of stuff just removed. So, well, there'll be too many bears in the world. Well, yeah, that's okay. We need to bring bear, our grizzlies, our wolves, our beavers back and take these dams down and let nature kind of bring itself back to this world. And that's what's going to help us. And people don't know that yet.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was... Thank you.
You're welcome.
For bringing your teachings, your experience, your life experience to all of us.
Welcome. Very welcome. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Anytime.